Bitcoin is close to becoming worthless.
Let's go. Now, what's the Bitcoin?
Bitcoin's like rat poison.
Yeah. Oh,
The greatest scam in history.
let's get it.
Bitcoin will go to fucking zero.
Yeah.
Alright, you ungovernable misfits. I'm your host, Max. Everybody knows that Bitcoin is useless, worthless, and doomed to fail. But what if everyone's wrong? What if it's the system that is doomed to fail? Join me as I speak to some of the brightest people in the space and slither to the deepest, darkest depths of the Bitcoin rabbit hole. Today's episode is with Sai, or Hodl Solo on Twitter. He started Bitcoin Events UK, and I wanted to get him on the show because I think this is really important. Anyone listening to this who has spent time with other Bitcoiners in person will know exactly why. It's just a different feeling when you get to meet people face to face. If we're right and things do get very dark over the coming years, it's going to be increasingly important to have a group of friends and people that you can rely on. I've met some of my best friends through Bitcoin, and meeting them in person really helps to build that friendship. It's also the reason that the Meshtadel is so important to me, and different Bitcoiners with different skill sets helping each other out. So I really love what Sai is doing here. He's pushing to get more events, get more Bitcoiners together, and more meetups in the UK. We cover many other topics as well, and I really enjoyed chatting to him. Before we start, I want to thank everyone who has been streaming sats and sending messages on the Podcasting 2.0 app. I really do appreciate it. I'm really loving Fountain now that I can actually send some messages back as well. That's a really cool feature. I'd also like to thank everyone who has been giving feedback, rating the show, and helping it in the rankings. If you haven't checked out the website yet, go to ungovernablemisfits.com for all the rest of the content, articles, video, art, prints, and much more. I'd also like to thank my sponsors. Let's start with Foundation Devices. With all the crazy bullshit that's going on in the financial system right now, and the parts of Bitcoin that touch it, it's more important than ever to have control of your keys. Do not leave them on an exchange. Do not tie them up in some fucking stupid yield generating scam. Hold them, and hold them properly. I really like what Foundation are doing because they make it really easy. Any fuckwit can do this, and they can do it very securely. With QR scanning, PSBT, and a really fucking beautiful design. You can use Foundation Devices Passport with their own app, that's the most simple way, or you can connect this to any of your favourite wallets. I really do suggest this to my family and friends, and I wouldn't have them as a sponsor if I didn't believe in the team and the product. If you haven't already seen it, I suggest you go to foundationdevices.com. If you decide straight away to buy one, then you can use the code BITBYBIT and you will get $10 off. Or if you're not 100% sure and you have some questions and you just want to run them past me or the team, you can do. My DMs are always open and you can always contact the team as well. Go to foundationdevices.com and start taking your security seriously today. And finally, we have Fast Bitcoins. Fast Bitcoins are an exchange based in the Isle of Man. They have a really amazing team. Danny Brewster is leading that team. He's been on this show a couple of times and he is a real die-hard, proper Bitcoiner. Now everyone knows on this show that I try and push people away from KYC services, so why the fuck have I got one as a sponsor? Well, I have these guys as a sponsor because I know that the majority of people are going to use exchanges, especially when we have times like this, and people want to be stacking a dip and stacking hard. I'll always advise that you go without KYC, but if you are going to do it, I want people to use the best team available. And I really believe these guys are. They take security very seriously. They push to get your sats off exchange. They do not want to custody your sats. Fast Bitcoins was also the first exchange in the world to integrate Lightning, and they are always a few steps ahead of the rest. Again, if you want to contact me or the team, you want to talk about trade-offs, you can do. My DMs are open, and I'll always be open and honest. I really hope you enjoy the show. Check out fastbitcoins.com. Also consider, after listening to this, contacting Hodl Solo or starting your own meetup or event. Enjoy. Si, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I've fucking wasted half an hour of your life there.
That's all right.
Apologies. I tend to have a lot of these problems with technology, and for some reason today, nothing wanted to connect to the internet at all. So we've rebooted everything about 10 times over and turned it off and turned it on again, and now we're okay, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Good stuff. Maybe time to buy a new computer.
I think so.
Spend some precious sats.
I know, this is the problem, isn't it, though? You become very tight once you get involved in Bitcoin.
Oh, I know, yeah. Can you hear me okay? Is it coming through?
You're coming through, yeah, loud and clear.
Okay, perfect. Good stuff.
Massive pleasure to have you on the show. Thanks for coming on. I've been having a look through what you've been doing, and I really think it's one of the most important things that we can do, especially at this stage with Bitcoin. I think that these meetups and getting to know people face to face, shaking hands and building real relationships is incredibly important with all the crazy bullshit we're probably going to be facing. So, I was really pleased to see that you're doing it and, get to know you a little bit.
Yeah, well, thanks. Thanks for having me on. It's been something that has sort of not come out of nowhere, but I was sort of in obscurity, I suppose. Just a few months ago, I was just living the Bitcoin Twitter kind of life and just being an anonymous pleb, I guess. But it was, I suppose, what really just started to make me think maybe I should get a bit more involved in the community was going up to the Real Bedford games, Peter McCormack's, going up there to watch the games. And I mean, it just so happened that, I mean, that's not too far from where I work. So it was, it's just, I've actually gone out because I work some Saturdays and it's just 10 minutes up the road really. So I'd gone up to watch the games. I met Peter a couple of times and had a chat with him. And then I think, and there was there's Connor Okus who works for Spiral. I was chatting with him one day, and you sort of introduce yourself to these people that are. I mean, he works for Spiral, and Peter's obviously got a huge podcast, and I'm sort of trying to tell them who I am, and then I'm thinking, well, who am I? I'm not doing anything for the community, not doing anything for the space. I'm just here stacking sats and reading Bitcoin Twitter and learning as much as I can about Bitcoin, but I wasn't really contributing to the community. I think a few things kind of came together, I suppose, that watching the Miami 2022 conference in the US, I could just see that there's such a bigger community there with the meetups and everything. Just, I think they've got like 55 meetups or something. I was looking at the numbers, I think on meetup.com or something website, but there's like 50, I did look at 53 meetups there, and they get big numbers. They get like 30 odd people, I think, to their meetups. And looking around trying to find meetups near us, there wasn't really that many, but certainly ones that weren't sort of shit coining as well. There's a few that were shit coining, but I thought I could probably. Well, I thought I should probably start one myself, and then I sort of started thinking a bit bigger than that. But yeah, I mean, I could. I don't know where you want to go back to, and
I would say, like, first of all, it's weird how it pulls you in, isn't it?
Yeah.
From the way that you just said that, it's like I could feel you obviously felt, I'm not doing enough for Bitcoin. And that's a really weird feeling. It's one that I've had. It's one that I think most people who start to get involved and do something here, it's like, why am I feeling that way? It's weird when you start to boil it down and you think, well, not putting words in your mouth, but it's pretty fucking important what Bitcoiners are trying to do.
Yeah.
If it fails, we're fucked. So what do we do? And if you're not a techie, I mean, you can see I'm not a techie. It's taken half an hour to fucking turn the internet on. So, if you're not a techie, it's a bit difficult to find your place. But what was it that made you just think, right, I'm going to spend the time? Because it's a lot to be dealing with on top of a job and everything else in life.
Yeah, and that's a big big problem for me at the moment. It's sort of like I've accidentally started another full-time job before I've quit the last one. So it's really busy at the moment. I'm so over the fiat job I'm doing is just an absolute fucking nightmare. So it's and I do long hours, but I do odd. I like work 2 days and then I've got 2 days off and stuff. So what that does is allowed me to sort of have some time to go out to these shops and speak to some of the merchants and stuff. But it's it's a lot of work at the moment. I'm so desperate to try and find a Bitcoin job, But maybe this will lead to that. But it's difficult, trying to fit everything in, family life and everything as well. So I'll get there though.
Yeah, it's difficult to balance it. I think like the more time you do it, the more you balance it, or just end up going full on into Bitcoin and working in Bitcoin. And I think that draw is kind of impossible to get away from, because if you really believe in it, and then you think, well, what's the most important thing I can do with my time? It's always going to drag you back to that. Like every time I go and do fiat work, I'm like, fuck, this is pointless and boring. I hate it. It's just like, it's so different. And then you start working with Bitcoiners and things just seem to flow so much better. It's so much more interesting and just a completely, totally different world.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I hadn't really met that many. I hadn't met any Bitcoiners really at all until I went up to start watching the Bedford Games. The only Bitcoiners I'd ever met, I suppose, was ones I'd created myself, by sort of orange pilling friends and family, and they're earlier, a lot of them really in the journey, so they hadn't got to that sort of sound money phase, and they're still messing around on Binance. And as much as I tried to tell them, that they're wasting their time, and they've just got a DCA and all that usual stuff. They don't listen. I kind of work with a lot of guys that are in their sort of late 20s, early 30s, and they're all just on about trading in and out of this shitcoin and that shitcoin, and I tell them, but you've kind of got to be in that full cycle before you sort of get burnt enough to realize. And one of them, actually, there's one that is really got it quite quickly, but he's still got some shit as well, XRP or something. So,
oh dear.
Yeah. So, but they'll come around in the end. And the place I've been working at the moment, I've been there for sort of. I started there in January 2018, so it was just after that bull run had started, and I was on a high, and I was telling everybody, get into Bitcoin, and one of the guys particularly he was like, okay, right, I'll get in. He bought £400 worth of Bitcoin, of course, right at the peak, and then spent the rest of 2018 and 19 telling me, you fucking idiot, my 400 quid's now worth fucking 120 quid or something. And so he was reminding me of that the whole time until we got to the price started to move again. But it's difficult to it's just time. It's time in the market, isn't it? So
exactly.
Yeah. And I've been in since 2013 was sort of when I first got in. So I've been through a few cycles now, and managed to accumulate enough knowledge, I suppose, to know this.
And what was it that made you fall down the rabbit hole? Like, were you already a gold bug or a libertarian, or
No, yeah, I wasn't. I wish I'd have been a libertarian at least at that time. I mean, I am now. Most definitely, I've gone through all that sort of learning curve. But I was really into the tech side of things, and I'm not super techie myself, but I was always really into kind of internet tech, and I was, I suppose, kind of I jumped onto things early, like podcasting, for instance. I did a podcast with my brother and a mate when in about 2006. It was really crap podcast. I won't tell you what it was called because people will find it and go, "Oh my goodness." It was we just did like movie news and TV show news and tech news and stuff, and so I kind of got into that early, and then I got it. I mean, Twitter came along, and I could see like the potential behind Twitter, that this anybody could get a message out into the world, which is we kind of take that for granted now, but it was kind of revolutionary when it came along, and podcasting was kind of in the same way as well, that I could see that great potential for disrupting the legacy kind of media, where anybody could have a voice. I really liked that, the idea of all that. So I soon as I was on, I think the first thing that sort of the first time I really heard about Bitcoin that I remember was I saw a tweet by a guy called Kevin Rose. Do you know Kevin Rose?
I know the name, but I can't think.
He was the founder of Digg.com. Digg was kind of like a precursor to Reddit, I suppose. There was where people would post stories and you could upvote them or downvote them. And he did a sort of early video podcast called Digg Nation, where they him and a guy called Alex Albrecht, they would talk about the current news that stuff that was voted up to the top. And I was following him on Twitter, Kevin Rose, and he tweeted something about I'm selling some of my Bitcoin because look, it's $700 or something, and I thought, what the hell is Bitcoin? And just sort of read through the comments and people saying, why are you selling? And he was saying, well, look how it's come up to $700, so I'm selling. So I just started looking into it from there, and because I was into podcasting, the first thing I thought I'd do, well, I'll find a podcast about Bitcoin, and I found what was it called? Let's Talk Bitcoin. And Andreas Antonopoulos was one of the three hosts on that. And so I just went down the rabbit hole of Bitcoin, really got into it quite in depthly. But when it was right at the tail end of 2013, and it peaked then at about 1,200, I think, didn't it? So I bought in a bit. I didn't buy a huge amount. I just bought a little bit, and then it started to. Well, Mt. Gox happened, and it just started to go down, and so I held on to it, and we moved to Ireland. My wife's from Ireland, and we decided to move to Ireland for a couple of years, and I just took my eye off the ball. Really, I didn't really. It's my biggest regret, I suppose. I didn't carry on. I thought, it's one of those. Well, my wife probably thought as well. It's one of those fads that he was into, and it's going to disappear. And I didn't look too much into it until we moved back to England in 2016, and I just started looking into it more. We were trying to buy a house at the time, and we were saving up money for a house deposit, and so I put well, in the end, after persuading my wife, I put some of the money from my house deposit in, and anyway, so we made a bit of money from doing that, and then I had to sell quite a bit because we wanted to get the house. And then 2018, I was pissed off that I'd sold so much, and I just, from that point on, because that was so 2018, I was I didn't have a lot left, and I thought, right, I'm really going to learn about this now. I've got the house is sorted, and so I just started DCAing from that point on. And but because of the job that I do, I get a chance to sit around on my ass a lot of the time, just staring at the computer, waiting for there to be problems to solve. And so I just read, like Nick Szabo's Shelling Out and The Bullish Case for Bitcoin, and just discovered the real true signal of it all. To get those original guys that were really talking about sound money, and I started listening to some other podcasts as well, like Stefan Livera's podcast. And at the beginning of his podcast, he I don't know if he says it still, but he says it's the Bitcoin podcast. Oh, this podcast about Bitcoin and Austrian economics. And I thought, what the hell's Austrian economics? I'd never heard of it. So there's another rabbit hole. So I went down that, and that sort of led to the libertarian side of things and anarchism and all of that stuff. So I've spent, the last since 2018, really, just seeped in all that sort of stuff, and just really, lapped it up. It's all I can think about now. As a lot of us are the same. Once it gets you, it really gets you.
I don't think you can ever step away from it. It reveals too much about the world you believed you understood for you to go back. Certainly for me, I was like, fuck, I thought I was smart. I was an idiot. How did I fall for all this fiat stuff? How did I fall for... Why didn't I ask these questions? And once you see just a little bit, you want to ask more questions. And the more you ask, the more lies you see. And it's like, well, there's one thing that is truth, and that's Bitcoin. And then you meet all the people who are also into it, who tend to be pretty libertarian-minded and generally pretty smart and nice people as far as I've ever met. And it's very addictive. It's hard to step away. But I'd be interested if you had a similar experience to me, in that everyone around you thought you were a fucking lunatic. Like,
Sorry, I lost you there for a minute. What? You've come back now. What was that?
Oh, fucking hell. Where did you lose me?
20 seconds ago.
Yeah, so no, I was just wondering, like, when you started to really fall down the rabbit hole properly in 2018 and start really understanding what this thing is about, how receptive were the people around you? Were they like, mate, you're a fucking lunatic, shut up, stop talking about this? Or was anyone, like family or friends, sort of going, oh, okay, that's interesting? Like, what was that experience like? Because for me, that's the reason I started this podcast, because I felt totally alone. Like, no one wanted to talk to me about it. I just felt like I'm just talking at people, and I know they just want me to shut the fuck up, and they just don't care. And that was just, but all I wanted to do, because I was so excited, I was just like, fuck, I need to speak to more people. And that's why I was like, well, if I start a podcast, I get to speak to people who are also interested in this, and then I can learn along the way, and that's going to be exciting. But I think without that, I'd have been so fucking lonely. Did you have a similar experience?
I suppose two sides of it. That because of the kinds of people that I get to work with, like I said, that they're into, and I've worked at lots of different places since I've been into Bitcoin, and with those 20 sort of 30-year-olds, there's a surprising amount of them that are into trading and that sort of side of it. So I could talk to them about that kind of stuff. But once I really started getting into, hard money and Austrian economics and that kind of stuff, then they're like, they're not interested. It's going over their heads. So, but I did talk to my wife a lot about it, and although initially she sort of thought I was bonkers, I think, and that it was a fad that was passing, but she's been like brilliant that I've been able to talk to her so much about it all. My brother too is pretty good. He's got a pizza business and he's accepting Bitcoin.
Awesome.
There. And but he's not sort of he doesn't read books and stuff like that. He kind of just gets it through me, but he's kind of always been on the into alternate sort of theories for things, I suppose, as well. So he's pretty good at that. But my wife has I mean, especially recently, she has totally been orange pilled. Like, just she's gone surprisingly for me. She's just swallowed the pill whole.
I love that.
Yeah, and I do other people that I've spoke to recently, even quite prominent Bitcoiners. I hear on podcasts sometimes they say, "Oh, my wife just thinks I'm mad." So I'm pretty lucky in that way that she got it. She came into it from a different sort of angle. I think that she's always into food and nutrition, and I remember we would like watch those Netflix sort of documentaries about I suppose that sort of trend of things that started with like Super Size Me, and there'd be ones where you'd go into these chicken places where they're just treating these chickens terribly and show you really what goes on with our food and everything. And I suppose when I listened to when I read the Bitcoin Standard and Saifedean talks about the fiat food and all that kind of stuff, it started to then when we were talking about the food stuff, I would be saying that everything comes back to the money. It's the money that's kind of driving this shit food that we're eating now. And so she started looking into that side of things, and that kind of brought her in. And the sort of the localization of she comes from she's from Ireland, and she's from a kind of a smallish community where everybody kind of pitches in and helps out. Everybody knows everybody, which is good and bad, but it's kind of something that all those sort of elements to like libertarianism, I suppose, where keep bringing things back down to a local community sort of level. She really loved that side of things, and so she's on Bitcoin Twitter now. She's she's telling me stuff that I was like, "Have you seen this today? Have you seen that tweet?" And
that's class.
She's been listening to your podcasting.
Bless her, poor lady. That's so cool, though. I love to hear that, because it's so important. Like, when you're in a relationship with someone, you're sharing your life with them. You want them to be interested, or at least aligned with the way you're thinking. And I think it would be very difficult to have a relationship with someone who was just like fully in fiat land.
Yeah.
Didn't care about the stuff that we're talking about. And it's interesting she's coming from a diet side, because that's such a massive theme that runs, with Bitcoiners, certainly on Twitter now. It's like, once you find this perfect money, you want to do everything that you can to make sure that you live in the best way possible, so that you live longer and happier. And you want to find out, well, I don't want to eat a load of bullshit. And you also, there's this theme which is like, go and shake your farmer's hand.
Yeah.
Make sure that you understand the source of your food and have that connection. It's really changed the way I've thought about food and these kind of interactions, because it's just nicer, like, knowing, okay, this is where this animal was raised. I know it's grass fed. I know the farmer. I know this is where I get my eggs. And I don't know, it kind of feels like it's going back to a time that was, I don't want to say better necessarily, but maybe a little bit more simple and personal and human, I think, is maybe the word.
Decentralized, and it's I mean that probably is better. And if you know where your food's coming from, you can meet your local farmer, and it's the way it should be, really, I think, isn't it? These big companies now that have, Tesco's come into a town, and all the little shops have closed down, and that's happened, in the last 15, 20 years, and we've kind of almost forgotten already what it was like to have a town centre and the high street where you could go to your butcher and your baker and stuff. It was definitely better in those days, and we can bring that back.
Well, yeah, and so let's get into that a little bit, because that's really what I think you
Yeah.
are pushing for here. You know, helping build this circular economy and this human interaction, and making things a bit more decentralized, and not having to rely on these massive corporations that we know are fucking us. I think it's just an incredible thing to be doing here in the UK, because, like you said, yeah, there are a few meetups. Self Banked, a good friend of mine, runs the one in Bristol, which is great, and I've been to a couple in London. But there's not so many. We're not quite there like America is. So, what's it been like setting this up, and what's the goal? I guess is like, where are you trying to take this?
I think what sort of brought it together for me, the two sort of elements that came together, a little bit of a light bulb moment, I suppose. I was listening to a Twitter Spaces, and Brian Harrington.
I love Brian.
American
He's
Bitcoiner.
fucking awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I think he's very much involved in the meetup scene over there, and he was talking about the idea that if you want to sort of onboard your local businesses and stuff, I mean, it can work hand in hand with the meetups. So if you grow your local meetup, and you've got 30 odd members, keen Bitcoiners, and with that you can use that as a tool then to go to speak to your local butcher and say, like, if you accept Bitcoin, I've got these 30 guys that are all going to come to your store and buy their meat from you, and it's no extra cost to you. You can I'll guide you through it and show you how to do it, and then they're going to get this extra business. Your meetup groups then got a butcher's that they can go to, and they want to be able to spend their sats. I mean, they don't want to spend their sats, but they want to spend them and replace them. And so these two things can go hand in hand. And so listening to him saying that, because I'd always kind of been on and off sort of thinking I really should get out there. And I mean, I talk to everybody about Bitcoin that and bore the ear off everybody that will listen. But I thought this can combine the two things together. I can build up a meetup group, and then just start using that as leverage to kind of get the local merchants on board. So I did that with Northamptonshire Bitcoin Network was the one that I started, and then sort of from that I thought, well, I should probably get this listed somewhere online to get the word out about it. But there didn't really seem to be, certainly not a Bitcoin only one that I could find that was just dedicated to the UK. So I thought, well, I'll start the Bitcoin Events UK website, was the idea sort of behind that. And that if I asked on Twitter, where are all the other meetups, and sort of use it as a central hub and just sort of get them all together, so people can, if you want to find your local meetup, go on to the bitcoinevents.uk website and find your local meetup, and if there isn't one near to you, then I sort of started encouraging people to start one themselves, because there's lots of gaps around the country where there isn't one.
Definitely.
Yeah. So I mean, that was kind of the original sort of spark of the idea, I suppose. And that was back in sort of early April, I think, when I sort of really started going for it. And I mean, it seemed really like it took off. I was at work, I tweeted something out, and I put my phone in my pocket, and I was going around, and my phone was just going mental in my pocket as all these people were following the Bitcoin Events group, or the Twitter, and so it's been good so far.
It's a different experience, isn't it? Just meeting Bitcoiners in person over a beer or a coffee and just chatting and shooting the shit. It's I do it very rarely and very selectively, just because privacy matters to me. It's very difficult to sort of balance it, I guess.
Yeah, that was a big worry for me, but I just sort of in the end, I just decided, okay, I've got to lift a little bit of this. If so, someone's got to do it. And so I thought, well, I'll just have to peel back the anonymity a little bit and sort of go for it. Some of the guys that I've met more recently that have got into Bitcoin more recently, they just don't care. They just like,
Oh yeah.
this is my name, this is my face, and
Yeah.
But I think maybe because I've come from the bit of the older school where everybody kind of seemed to be much more anonymous. I was much more cautious. I still try to be cautious now, but I don't know.
It's a balance.
You've got to get the balance right.
It's so rewarding, that feeling of meeting people. It's like you're back home, I remember, I don't know if you've seen, you probably would have seen it, but the Bitcoin camping that Dragon runs, be in July.
Yes, the Bitcoin Beach Retreat.
Yes, in Wales. I went to that last year, and it was just, Oh, you going this year, or?
No, and last year I was in Ireland, and I think, what are we doing this year? Oh no, we weren't in Ireland last year. This year we're in Ireland. We're going to a wedding. But last year we had something else on, and we couldn't go. So yeah, I'm going to the Bitcoin Adventure. Down the Avon Valley one,
Bristol way. Yeah,
down there. That's 2nd of July, I think. Yeah, but yeah. So you went to the. How was it good?
Well, it was just like, I said, it's like being home. It was right in the depth of all the COVID fucking nightmare shit that was going on. And it was at a time where I'd said to my missus, I was like, look, we might have to leave the country here. Like, I think things are going to get to the stage where we're not welcome here anymore. And
we were having the same conversations.
And it was dark. I mean, if you remember back, it was pretty fucking scary because it's like, oh yeah, well, I've got this unseizable money. It's like, well, great, but it's not very much good if you're in prison or concentration camp, or if you can't travel, or you're not allowed in the supermarket or anything else. And so it was pretty dark, and I was feeling quite down and not so confident about the future. And then I went down to Wales, and there was about 30 people there, and a couple of them I knew, but most of them I didn't. And it was just fucking amazing. We just sat around a campfire. We put some steaks on the barbecue. Everyone was really open, really honest, just having a good time. And everyone became good friends, and still are. And, we still chat, and it's, it's one of those things where you were like, oh, these are my people. These are like freedom-loving, genuine people. And it's not something I'd experienced for a long time. And so I was so worried about doxing myself going into it. But the trade-off there, I was like, I wouldn't change that for the world. It was fucking amazing.
Yeah, no, I can totally agree with that. The meetups that we've had so far, it's just, you've got some, I suppose you've just got something so core to what you're thinking about all the time in common with somebody, and it's so there's just never a lack of what you're going to talk about. As Bitcoin covers so many topics, there's just never ending. So, and that you're all pretty much on the same page with most stuff. So it's been amazing for me too. I mean, just even that. I give you one example. Just the other day, I've been trying to find some of these shops that were near to us. There was an old map of merchants that accepted Bitcoin, but we weren't really sure whether some of them really still did accept Bitcoin. And so there's one of them that's pretty close to me, and a bookshop. And I thought I'd drive over to the bookshop. Went into the bookshop. It's kind of a little village kind of bookshop. There's no visual thing on the outside to say that they accept Bitcoin or anything. I went in and there's nobody in the shop. It's like old books and stuff, and there was nobody in the shop. And So I heard these feet coming down the stairs, and this guy came in and said hi, and I said, "Oh, I've heard a rumor that you accept Bitcoin," and his eyes lit up straight away, and he's like, "Yes, we do. Nobody's ever come in though wanting to spend any Bitcoin," and I said, "Well, it's going to change today." So I sort of explained to him what I was doing, and we had a long conversation in there. But just straight away, within 60 seconds, I could tell I'm going to really get on with this guy. It was, I mean, yeah, we talked for ages. He'd got in 2012, and watching Max Kaiser on YouTube or something. But yeah, it was great connection straight away, and that's what you find, I think, every time I've met somebody, and I've been to some of the other, I've been to Bitcoin Surrey's meetup and Big Shot, the Berkshire Bitcoiners as well. I'm sort of working with those two guys. We kind of,
where do they do that? Berkshire Bitcoiners.
The first one that they had was at a place called the Cricketers. It was a pub called the Cricketers, and there was a few. How many came? There was about 12, I think, of us.
Okay.
That were there. There was, different Bitcoiners. One guy is really into mining, so he was chatting about mining. There was Jason Dean. Have you heard of Jason Dean? He works for what's the company? He does the Bitcoin Pioneers group.
I don't think I have, to be honest. I may have.
Luna, the exchange, not the stable coin.
Not Luna.
The unstable coin. Luna. He works for them. I think he's kind of like their the UK agent. But he was there, and a few others, and that was it was great. There's never a dull moment at a Bitcoin meetup, that's for sure.
Yeah, and just that knowledge that these people are so on the same page, and it's something that's so rare. So it's like, generally, I mean, I've not yet met a Bitcoiner and not got on with them. It's just never happened.
No.
But I mean, I'm sure it will do at some point, but, it's very rare. Whereas in normie world, it's very, very rare for me to actually like someone. It's very rare for me to feel like, you know what, like I'm really aligned with this person. I feel that we're on the same page. I feel that when they're talking about things, I don't feel like I want to vomit, or I feel like they're a fucking retard. That's quite a rare thing. And so it's just so refreshing. It's like you don't even have to be talking about anything to do. I mean, most of the time when I'm talking to Bitcoiners now, we're not really talking about Bitcoin. A lot of the time it's like, I want to buy this bit of land and I want to do regenerative agriculture, and I want to raise a good family. I want to make sure that, my kids learn the right way and that they're not indoctrinated by the state and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, I don't know. It's just, I think it is a very addictive, and it's so nice seeing these friendships blossom and the little businesses that spin off them and people helping each other. And it's really lovely to see.
Yeah, no, it is. It is totally. So yeah, I mean, I mean, that's one of the things that has spin off from me. So besides from the Bitcoin events UK stuff, with a couple of the guys that I've met initially through the Real Bedford games, the guy Chris that runs Bitcoin Surrey, and James runs Berkshire Bitcoiners, and so we're starting a business now which is going to be onboarding merchants. I mean, that's the mission of it at the moment. So we're just kind of, it's very early days with it at the moment. I mean, the website's not even really built properly yet, but we're putting together some packages, I suppose, of different options for the merchants, because different businesses are going to need different options. If you're a mobile hairdresser, you don't need a point of sale terminal. You just need to know how to use like Wallet of Satoshi or Moon Wallet or something. But then, other ones need more complicated stuff. and so we've got a range of different things. I really love what Ben Ark is doing with his LNPOS devices. I've built a few of those now and taken those to the meetups and shown those off. I've got a few more on order at the moment. I mean, they're really cool, lovely little simple ones. Yeah. And so, if you take those to some of the merchants that I've been to, I mean, there's a guy near to me that's selling burgers in a van, and I showed him one of the LNPOS machines, and he absolutely loved it. And he wants one of those, and I said, well, I haven't got a spare one now, but he keeps texting me now saying, when are you going to get my thing? So I just put him on Moon Wallet, and I went back and bought my lunch, and my wife came over, and we bought our lunch, and we finished our lunch and went back over to him, and he said, I've been thinking, I'm not going to sell this Bitcoin. I'm just going to keep it. And I said, you've been, that's perfect. There's no more education needed. Just keep it. Just hold on to it. And so I promised him that we're going to do our next meetup there. He sells beer actually as well. So he's a burger fan that sells beer. So
perfect.
We're going to go do our next meetup. What could you want? Yeah. Burgers and beer.
That's really cool. Yeah, it's nice as well, because once they start to understand, well, the fees are lower than Visa and MasterCard and everything else, and it's quick and it's easy, and over time this goes up and my pound buys me less. So when you start to think, even if they do it for 6 months or a year or 2 years, there will come a point where they just go, fuck, what am I doing with these pounds? Like, what am I actually doing here? This is crazy.
I've lost you again. Oh, you're back.
Yeah, sorry. It's this fucking connection. It drives me absolutely mad. But yeah, that does sound awesome. And all these tools really help. I'd be interested to hear how this business goes and how the onboarding process goes, because it can be a tough one to crack.
I've lost you again, yeah.
Fucking hell. Tell me when you've got me. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, coming and going a little bit there, but
fuck.
I don't know if it's me. Could it be me? Could it be me? Is your connection?
I can hear you. I'm showing as full signal, but it's been really fucking irritating today, so it could be lying to me.
I could tell they're probably watching a movie downstairs, and maybe.
Let's try again, and then if there's a problem, maybe try that. I've turned everything else off, so let's see. But no, like I say, I love to see that you guys are working together and pushing it forward. It's cool, and it sounds like it would be fun as well, because you're working with like-minded people.
Oh, it really is. I mean, we've been talking about that, yeah. I mean, it really is, and going back to sort of wanting to quit the fiat job. I mean, I've never been so desperate to quit my job, because I've got this, like I said, I've sort of started this other full-time job on the side, and it's so much fun, and it's so what I want to do with my time. But then, I still have to turn up to this shitty job for the rest of the time. And that saps 50% of my time away. And the whole time I'm there, I'm thinking, I really should be updating the website. I really should be messaging this guy back and saying this and that. And, that's what I want to be doing. So it's, I'll get there. It's just, it's always the same, I suppose, if you're transitioning from one job to another. But, the job I really love to do here is not bringing any money in yet. But well, I'm not necessarily doing it for the money. It's I'd be doing it anyway. If the Bitcoin price went in the right direction, then maybe I could.
I was just about to say
I wouldn't have to worry. Yeah. It's gone in the wrong direction, but it's all good. So we're building up these different options for the different merchants, and I was just going to say one of the things I did get some pushback on when I was going around to the different merchants, especially ones that hadn't really ever thought, or they'd heard of Bitcoin, I suppose, but they hadn't really thought about it. I mean, one guy said to me, "What do I want Bitcoin for?" And I thought, well, that's going to take a while. But if his sort of first thing was, well, I've heard that it's volatile. So what happens if I make £60 worth of Bitcoin today, and then by the end of the week it's worth 30? And what do I do? So at the time I was sort of saying, well, you'll have to get an exchange account and sell it straight away if that's what you want to do. And it starts to get complicated then for them, and then like, oh yeah, okay, this sounds too complicated for me. But with an option like CoinCorner's new Bolt card, and they're using their point of sale terminals as well, that is an option a little bit like Jack Mallers is doing with Strike, that it's transferring over the Bitcoin network, but then in the merchant's account it can change back to fiat straight away. So that little option there is now something that sort of eliminates that problem for some people. So I think we might sort of offer that to some people that it seems right for.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And it opens that door. Like, even if they start with that and they say, well, what do I want Bitcoin for? I'm really worried about the volatility, because what if it goes from £40 to £20? It's like, well, also, what if it goes from £40 to £400?
Yeah, exactly.
Once they see that, I think, the foot's in the door, it's changing back to dirty slave notes every day, and they're getting their fiat, and that's fine. But there probably will come a point where they change their thinking. And the other thing is, I was going to say, when I'm talking to people about this kind of stuff, I'll normally say, like, if you are accepting Bitcoin, don't expect that every person who comes to your store is going to want to pay in Bitcoin.
No, I was going to say that too. Yeah. You're going to get one every sort of couple of months, probably. And it would be my meetup group.
Exactly. And so then it's like, well, okay, think of it then as a savings account where maybe 0.5% or 1% of your sales come in Bitcoin. And okay, if that's volatile, is that going to cause you a massive amount of issues? Some it might, but like a lot of people maybe could reconsider and say, well, it probably wouldn't be too bad if I was keeping that sort of amount in Bitcoin, and then it's not actually going to cause issues with the cash flow or anything like that. So but the main thing is just getting your foot through the door and getting people to start thinking about it. And
it's weird that a lot of them do have that sort of idea that what I'm saying to them means that they're going to suddenly have a stampede of people coming through the door wanting to spend Bitcoin. And they're like, oh, even my brother had that problem. He's not very techie, and trying to get him to it set him up on his phone and everything. He's like, oh, I don't know, because he's making these pizzas and kind of doing it by himself, and he's taking cash and he's making the pizzas, and he's got to remember this order. And he's like, no, it's going to be too complicated. So I set him up with the LN URL QR codes, and he's got those stuck in his window, so he doesn't even have to think about it. They just scan the barcode. But I said the same thing to him. It's not like you're going to get every other person coming wanting to spend Bitcoin. It's just, it's just that we'll stick you on the map, that on the website. And, I've mentioned it to a few people already, and they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to go down. It's by the beach in Cornwall. It's a great spot. And so they'll, it's all good. He's not going to get loads of people, but hopefully eventually start building it up to that point.
And what's your thoughts on this Bitcoin circular economy? Because there seems to be sort of two schools of thought, mainly is that some people are like, never selling Bitcoin, no point not doing it. It's the best store of value. I'd be stupid to spend it. And then you've got the other school of thought, which is, well, no, it would be very useful to have the circular economy. It onboards more people. It stops KYC being such a problem, because if it's changing hands constantly, peer-to-peer, that's going to be better. Like, where do you sit with all of that, and where do you want to see this thing go?
Yeah, I don't think you really have to be one or the other. I think it is the greatest, store of value, but there's nothing to stop you. Just like if you've got Wallet of Satoshi on your phone and you've got 50 quid in it, and you go and you buy your lunch with it, like the other day when I went and bought those burgers, it was expensive burgers, actually, 17 quid. Wow. It was burgers and chips, and it was 17 quid. But no, it oh my God, it was really, really good food. But then I just went onto my exchange app and bought £20 worth of Bitcoin, topped the wallet back up. I mean, while I was sitting there after eating, I mean, it was like a couple of minutes, I'd re-topped it back up. So as long as you're always spending and replacing, you're not getting out of Bitcoin. You're not selling your Bitcoin. You should never sell your Bitcoin, but it's fine to spend your Bitcoin. That's my opinion. I mean, you're spreading it around. Then that's how adoption happens. That's how in the grander scheme of things, that's how, as we get the bull runs go up and people mad rush into the markets and they don't really know what they're doing, and they buy Bitcoin and get freaked out when the price goes down. They sell it, but it's they're spraying their Bitcoin around, and lots of other people are buying them, and it gradually everybody's gets a little bit of Bitcoin, and if we can get more local merchants buying accepting Bitcoin, then there. And now that Burgerman, he's got £17 worth of Bitcoin that he didn't have before, and I was going to buy my lunch anyway, and I've just replaced the Bitcoin I spent. So I've not lost any. So I kind of think about it in that way. Really, you can have both.
Yeah, I think a lot of people's concern with things like that is like, oh, well, if I'm buying on an exchange and I'm KYC'd, then there's a record of that transaction. And then I move out of there, and unless I'm coin joining, there is then a record that I've spent it. And then that means, what if there is some tax in the future or some problem? And I understand that. I think that's a reasonable way to think, because it is reasonable to assume that governments will try and fuck this up for us, because obviously, this is not good for them. They lose a lot of control. So I understand that side. But then on the other hand, what I'm thinking with these meetups is, there's a lot of people who are either mining, or they're so long Bitcoin that they need to sell a little bit to live occasionally. There are a lot of people who do need to sell. And, you have Bisq and you have RoboSats and you have some of these other peer-to-peer exchanges. But what I think would be really cool is to have at some of these meetups the ability where people can say, yeah, I'll sell you a little bit, and, bang, you send it across Lightning, whatever. And there's this constant churn and movement through actual Bitcoiners as well as these merchants. Because my personal opinion is, use the exchanges as little as you can, because it's probably going to bite you at some point. But it's certainly the easiest way. But then, a lot of people don't want to fuck around with Bisq and these kind of things. So you've already got a load of Bitcoiners meeting on a monthly or weekly basis, however you do it. So why not have an in-person exchange? I think that would be a really cool thing to have.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. I suppose I'm a bit. I'm just sort of throwing, maybe a bad thing, but throwing caution to the wind a little bit with it. I just think we should spread it around as much as possible. But with it, you've got to be careful. I think with as new kind of coin joins become easier to do, and there's sort of security side of it, the anonymity of Lightning and things, that will help things, I think, hopefully, eventually.
Yeah. Well, Wallet of Satoshi is quite nice. I mean, a lot of people are against these custodial wallets, but I use Wallet of Satoshi for small amounts where I'm like, okay, it's 20 quid. Like, if they rug pull me, I'm not going to jump off a bridge. But what's quite nice is, because it's custodial and all those sats are in one pool, effectively, if you're not using it too often and you're using it a little bit randomly, it's pretty hard to track you at that point, because they're all sat in one pool. So that is a benefit, as far as I can see it. And there are a lot of different privacy techniques that people can use that really aren't that difficult. But it's just, I think that people are quite scared of it. And also, like you said, a lot of people would just throw caution to the wind, because at the end of the day, what you're doing is ethically right. It's like, it's actually probably the best thing you could possibly do with your time, to make the world a better place. So why the fuck should you worry about it? Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
Well, that's exactly what I think. Yeah.
I totally get that.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying earlier about just being in for a while and just not doing really contributing to the community. I suppose I just thought, and how can I contribute, because I can't code and do that sort of tech side of things. So it's just one thing that I thought, well, I can do this. I can contribute by sort of trying to grow the community. So that's it's taken me a while to get there, but I think this is the way that I can contribute. So
definitely. Well, I'm hoping that some people who listen to this show will get spurred on. Got a fair amount of people in England who do listen to this show, and I'm hoping if you're listening to this that you think about it, and maybe should they reach out to you if they're thinking about it? Can they reach out and ask for advice or help with things?
Oh, definitely, yeah. I mean, I'm Huddle Solo on Twitter, and the Bitcoin Events UK is also at Bitcoin Events UK, and our website bitcoinevents.uk. Those two, you can contact me if you want to start a meetup. I mean, and we'll list it on the website and help get the word out about it. I put a tweet out a week or so ago about just some tips that I thought that people that wanted to start a meetup, is kind of things that helped me. Some of them are pretty obvious. I mean, like starting a Telegram group and starting a Twitter account for it, and a few other little things. But I've been helping a few of the other meetup groups. Bitcoin Sheffield, they've just sort of trying to sort of boost up their numbers, I suppose, and so I was giving those guys a hand last week to sort of polish up their. They didn't have a Twitter account, for instance, so I was giving him a hand and made him a logo for his meetup group, and gave him a few tips, and so it's just all working together, really, isn't it? And just helping each other out. I think if the organisers of the different meetups, if we chat as well, and then eventually maybe we can build it up into the point where we can cross over with some joint events and just grow the community and just build it into as big a thing as possible. And with that sort of army, we can onboard more merchants. There's plenty of places around the country that I think that there isn't, that I can find anyway. I mean, there may be some that I haven't found. I mean, down in the Cornwall area, there doesn't seem to be any. The sort of east over in Norwich and that sort of Sussex area, there's none there. Manchester doesn't seem to have one that I could see. And besides from, I mean, there's some stuff in South Wales, but most of Wales doesn't really have any. I haven't found any in Ireland, actually. I've been sort of...
Oh, really?
We've got one, well, there's one in Northern Ireland, Belfast Bitcoiners, but none in the... I did put some tweets out trying to find some in Ireland. I know there's Bitcoiners there. They've got some guys mining and stuff, but no.
I know I have listeners there.
Yeah, so if there's any there that just want to get listed on our website, I mean, that helps boost your numbers a little bit, maybe, and we can. So let me know through Huddle Solo on Twitter.
Brilliant. Well, I'll put all the links and everything in the show notes, and if I chat to anyone or anyone reaches out after listening to this, I'll send them your way. But I just wanted to say I really, really appreciate what you're doing. The fact that you're pushing this forward is incredible, and thank you from me and every other Bitcoiner in the UK.
No problem. I'm loving it.
Cool. Well, I think that's probably a good place to wrap it up, but I really enjoyed chatting to you, and I wish you all the best, and just let me know if there's anything I can help with, and I'll be happy to help.
All right. Well, thanks, Mike. It's been great. It's been great chatting with you. Thanks.
All right. Cheers, mate. Thanks again for listening, and I hope this episode inspires you to start a meetup or start going to one, start interacting more with Bitcoiners, and you can always reach out to Sai if you want a little bit of help or you want to be listed with your new meetup on the website. If you want to get in contact with me, my details are in the show notes, and you can also reach us at ungovernablemisfits.com. If you'd like to support the show and you don't want to stream any sat, I really would appreciate if people would either rate on any of the podcasting apps, or give a comment, or give feedback on the website. Anything like that really does help me with the rankings, and also to refine the website to make sure that people are getting exactly what they need. Thank you so much for all the support, and if this is your first dip or drop or whatever you want to call it, please don't shit yourself. Things are going to be fine, and remember to have a low time preference and think about why we're really doing what we're doing. Read a few articles, listen to a few audio books, listen to some podcasts, relax, everything's going to be fine. Unless you've got a little bit lost and you've stumbled across this podcast and you're holding a massive bag of shitcoins, then probably do panic, because you are fucked.